The Australian Ghost Whisperer with Katarina Legato and James Jennings. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode.
Hi everyone, welcome back.
Now on this particular episode we're going to be talking about kids.
Yes.
And the topic of whether or not children should develop their psychic abilities. So Katarina, over to you, the expert on such matters. What's your opinion on that?
I strongly believe that most children that are coming into the earth plane at the moment are starseeds, and most of these children are already quite developed. They're quite old souls, they're quite wise souls, and I'm sure that many of you parents out there are aware that your child perhaps already has amazing and special gifts. So yes, it is really important to nurture this aspect of your children, in a very balanced, obviously, and careful way, slowly. So ways that I always, recommend is for children to feel safe and to be able to talk to their parents about what they're sensing and feeling. So create a sacred space. Let your child know that it's safe for them to talk about things that are not physical. Perhaps your child will come out and say, oh, I saw grandpa or grandma that's passed away, or I'm, seeing angels, or I'm having these dreams. It's really important for children to feel safe and that they're not going to be judged, and that they're going to feel that you're listening to them and that you can help them. And there's lots of beautiful angel books for children. There's lots of meditations online for children these days. And it might be that you might want to take your child out and they pick a few crystals that they can have in their bedroom in order to help them to feel like this is a bit of that spiritual world for them that is a part of them. Perhaps they can have crystals there as a way of protecting them or helping them to feel grounded. Again, if your child is feeling a little bit like they're, a little bit out of whack with everything that's going on, get them to lay down on the grass and pat them and ground them into Mother Earth. That's always a lovely way to ground them. Also, I with lots of kids, they love this one, whereas get them to imagine, beautiful golden angel wings wrapped around them, protecting them, helping them to feel insulated. But it is really important, I feel, for children to be able to develop their psychic gifts. They're usually so much more able to do this when they're young because they're so fresh out of the spirit world. So these gifts are already quite developed within them. But doing it in safe ways, as I've talked about in other videos about, protection and meditation, and being able to perhaps play some nice meditation music for them where they can sit with however it is that they're feeling, even if they probably can't meditate, but at least it's music that they can listen to, that they can get into that connecting into their hearts and being able to talk about how they're feeling or what they're sensing and seeing. I think if children are developing at a young age, it's because they've brought these gifts in with them and that they need to develop them, because these gifts are obviously going to support them through life. Because look at, most people try and develop their gifts when they get older. They realize they begin to search for the spiritual aspect of themselves and they feel like, I want to develop my spiritual gifts. Imagine if all of us, if all children had, everyone had developed their gifts from when they were very young, it would be such a different world. And I feel that more and more children are quite enlightened little beings that are here to help to heal the world, to help to heal and change the reality. So therefore, they're coming in already with quite developed gifts. And I feel that it's really important to nurture, for them to help them to nurture these gifts, to understand. I remember one day I was doing a reading online with this, she was a grandmother, and I picked up on her little granddaughter. And I go, oh my gosh, I just feel your granddaughter, she's so psychic and so... And she said, yes, she is. She's always talking with her guides. And she said one day she was at preschool, and this other little girl was kind of making fun of her. So when her grandmother came to pick up her granddaughter, a very psychic little girl was talking with her guide, she goes to grandma, I don't know why that girl's guides don't tell her to stop being so naughty. And it was so hilarious because I could just envision this little girl being able to speak to her guides, and it was just natural for her, so I think it's, and this, her grandmother was just really cherishing all these beautiful gifts that her granddaughter had and thought it was fantastic. Whereas sometimes I've talked to people who are like, oh, I don't know, I'm frightened that, my child doesn't have, overly vivid imagination and that there isn't some mental illness going on. And no, it really is. Children are so much more receptive to their guides, to the angelic realms, because they're so much more innocent. They come into this world and they're a clean slate, so therefore they're not struggling, they don't have the fear component coming in. They're quite receptive to the benevolent spirits and guides. So, you can teach them to meditate. You could encourage your child to maybe have some special prayers that help them to get through things or difficult times. Perhaps you can, if your child is old enough to have a journal where they can write about what they're experiencing, and you can kind of sit with them and, spend that time together looking through what it is that they've written. Perhaps painting is a really good way that children love to paint how they're feeling, or perhaps they're painting a spirit guide that they're in communication with, or they're just painting colors. This is a really wonderful, when they're using their creative skills, this helps them to develop their psychic abilities. It helps them to be in tune with the higher forces of love around them. So it is important, I feel, for children to develop their gifts safely, and obviously under some, some supervision and spending the time. And perhaps, if they're going to school, maybe it's a space where they keep that a little bit separate, because sometimes children can be quite mean, and I remember when I was a child and I'd be talking to spirits in the school playground, they were very rude to me. So, and the kids would make fun, oh, she's mad, she's talking to the air, like kids can be really awful. But so you've just got to kind of express this to your child, that in the nicest way, that it's probably important for them to keep their spiritual development maybe at home, and when they go to school, they're just going to school and they're going to play and have a really physical day and have fun, and so that they don't get made fun of. And sometimes it's hard, sometimes they'll still get made fun of, but just let them know that they're very special, they have these special gifts. And I think, children are very good. They're able to bounce back from anything negative quite easily. But definitely I'm seeing so many psychic children coming in. I've got friends who've got incredibly psychic children that are just adorable. I just, like look at your Lily, for example. How in tune is your Lily, How old, would you like to tell everyone how old your Lily is?
14. But look, I have two daughters, 14 and 15, and they've both exhibited, psychic traits and abilities at certain times. But I guess Lily
is that little bit more into it for me.
She's definitely into it, and she's just in a process now of learning to trust her intuition, because I think it's very typical for when these abilities awaken in people, or we have them, you can easily second guess them. Yeah. So I think that she's been second guessing, but I'm now teaching her
to trust.
To trust.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah.
That's really important to teach them to trust what they're sensing and feeling. Yeah.
Because, when we look too much to external sources for the answers, sometimes that's giving our power away too much. And, I guess I try and remind her that the power is right there with her, and it's giving her that confidence to go, no, it's here, and I can tap into it, and I can, so.
And what an incredibly strong woman she will be as she grows up, because you've taught her to trust her feelings, trust her intuition. Like, wow. That's amazing. I mean, it took us in our 20s to learn to trust ourselves. I mean, my parents never taught me to trust my intuition. It was like they was worried that I was perhaps bordering into mental illness. So, what an incredible gift. This is you're a wonderful example of how you're building this confidence and strength in your daughters, that they can acknowledge their spiritual gifts and become these incredibly confident, powerful women.
Yeah, well, that's definitely, the plan,
Beautiful. I think that's amazing. And you also have found that your girls have been very drawn to crystals or cards.
Love that stuff.
Tell them.
Yeah, no, look, I guess that's a good example in terms of kids who are drawn to spiritual things and have that ability is, they've always had a fascination with crystals. Like, they have so many crystals and they wear crystals and, Ella the eldest one, has been into tarot. So they're very much into readings and tarot and crystals and things like that. And
so cute.
And
but Ella's a little older.
She's a little
15.
older. Yes, yeah. So Lily, what's interesting with her is that she's been seeing the number 44 everywhere. So this is like a good example of how your intuition can start coming to the fore. Is that and when I say everywhere, I mean it. It's like she's like, Dad, I saw it. Today I saw it 5 times. I saw it on someone's shirt. I saw it on a house number. I saw it on a car that went past. I saw, like, she's just always, and I'm like, to the point where it was getting like, there's something's going on, because she's seeing it and telling me all the time. So eventually, like very recently, she said, Dad, can you tune in and try and figure out why I'm seeing the number 44 all the time? And I did. And the message that I got was that the reason she's seeing it is because she's being taught how to recognize patterns in unusual places, because a lot of the time with psychic messages and intuition, you're going to see things come through in ways that are unorthodox. They're not normal.
That's right.
And what was happening was that she was being taught to recognize messages and patterns in abstract ways, because that way you can string it together and put the message together.
Beautiful. Amazing.
Yeah, so I told her, I said, this is you're being taught how to recognize that you can see messages in unusual places. And you would concur that that's a pretty valid way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You're in sync with the universe and the sacred geometry. Everything is sacred geometry on the earth. So again, like, she's so tapping into that sacred geometry of the earth, and she's got a wonderful gift. So this is a wonderful example of what many children are experiencing.
Absolutely.
And do you find that she has other friends that are quite psychic or interested in, or not as much at school?
She hasn't told me about other friends of hers that are interested in that kind of thing. It seems to be, but this is quite cute. Like, I mean, I didn't know this, but she watches watches our episodes every week, and I didn't even know. Like, she would just like be in a room on the weekend and watch the latest one, and I was like, that's so cute. Like, it's so, like, because being a parent, you're not like, you don't force your kids to take the same interest as you, but she's interested enough that she's been watching what we do and learning about it, and then obviously she's been coming to me as well to do more. But her seeing that number, the number 44 everywhere, it's actually sort of awakened that in me a bit as well. So now I'm starting to see messages and patterns in things.
So you're learning, you're both...
Yeah. And I've had that happen in the past, but it's kind of been a bit dormant, but it's now coming back again. But I mean, here's an example. And look, it's either an extreme coincidence or, I'm starting to see signs. But I went over to Ella's mother's place to drop something to Ella a couple of days ago. And as I was driving there, a car pulled out in front of me, and its number plate was Ella 15, which is her name and her age.
Can't make this stuff
and it's
up.
like, what? Like,
yeah.
That's either the most bizarre coincidence of all time, or it's your brain going, look for
The messages.
The messages.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that to me is just, come on. Like, how is that even possible to have like a 15-minute car trip and for that to jump out in front of me on... That's what I was going to see her. Like...
Wow.
So weird.
But children, and I think even adults are seeing numbers appearing constantly or, you know, a message or things like that. And it's getting you in sync with the universe and the messages and the sacred geometry that we are all part of. You know, we are sacred geometry ourselves energetically. And, when you get in sync with that, it's like there's this higher force that's guiding you through life and guiding you your steps and making you aware of your particular direction or what it is you're meant to be doing next or what your purpose is. So if you're having these teachings as a child, imagine like when these children grow up, they're going to be so in tune with themselves and with the forces of nature. They're going to be in tune with the forces of the universe and they're going to be so powerful and enlightened, and that's exactly what this world needs right now, you know, because we've gone from, you know, a humanity where, you know, it's like very religious, very controlled, very into, now there's this explosion of spirituality and everybody wants to learn, everyone wants to experience the spiritual aspect of themselves, children and adults alike. I feel like people are using perhaps religion as a basis, but then going forth and exploring other realities, other dimensions. There's people and children that are in direct contact with higher benevolent beings from other planets. There's so much going on, and because they're here to help us all to grow and to become enlightened and to be able to lift the frequency of this planet and you know, and be able to shine and be a place of love and harmony, you know, like the Garden of Eden returning. So these children are here playing very much these very specific and important roles because they're here to help the evolution of not only each other but of the planet also, and out of the darkness and into the light.
Absolutely.
So I get so excited when I meet these children, you know. Parents bring them to me because they want to have like a chat, a Q&A with me. And the questions that sometimes they ask me, I have to really sit and have a really good kind of think and sense and feel what the answer is for them, because they're in contact with, you know, these incredibly enlightened beings from other planets, or they are able to, you know, communicate with the angelic realms. They're given information, they're given numbers, they're given, you know, a sacred geometry, they're given light codes. So there's just so much going on with these children, and I'm always so grateful that they are with parents that are respecting their gifts and making them feel secure about them and loving them and just really nurturing their journey, because I know that they really are the, you know, the warriors of the future that are going to change and going to create this amazing world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
like your goals are definitely there. And, you know, with these children too, they're just amazing. You know, you might find that they want to change their diet, so they don't want to eat the whole, you know, meat and 3 veg thing. A lot of them want to be vegetarian and want to eat food that's grown under the sun because it has so much more vitality and higher frequency in it that's nurturing them rather than the dense, heavy foods.
Yeah, well, I've found that Lily's gone vegetarian, and I've actually just, as we've been talking, it's jogged my memory for a few other instances of where I've picked up on psychic ability and kind of encouraged it. Just, you know, as an example for any other parents who might have children and want to encourage it. So I remember when Ella was very, very young, she would say things sometimes where she seemed to have a particular insight or knowledge about a situation or a person that it was coming from somewhere else, and I could tell.
Yeah, you can tell.
I picked that up from her at a very young age, and I used to play games with her to try and like develop her ability. So an example is one day when I knew that she kind of had the ability. I remember one time I said, like, let's do a little game. So I'm gonna picture an object in my mind.
Oh, wow. That's a good game.
Yeah, and I want you to tune in and tell me what it
Telepathy.
is. Yeah. So I sat there and just remember, when I say I'm going to pick an image, there's an infinite amount of possibilities.
I know.
Like
Wow.
it could be millions of different things. And I picked one thing, and she did it, and she answered first without thinking. She went, "It's this." And I knew that she hadn't tuned in, and I said, no. I said, what I want you to do now, I want you to take some deep breaths, just relax. You don't need to rush your answer, because she just rushed an answer. You don't need to rush your answer. Take a few deep breaths. Now, I want you to tell me when you see something in your mind and you feel it in your heart and you see it in your mind. And she took a few seconds, and then she went, blah. And it was exactly what I had pictured in my head.
That's amazing.
It blew my mind. Like, so.
Well, that's a nice little thing parents can do with their children, you know?
Yeah,
Teaching them
absolutely.
telepathy.
Yeah. Like, it was just a fun little game.
What an amazing, way to kind of, really help them develop their abilities. Yeah, I think, look, children are amazing. I just think children really, most children have these incredible abilities.
They
and
really
if we
do.
are there to invoke and help them develop them, then wow, what a beautiful world this place will become.
100%.
Yeah.
Another thing as well. So Ella, a few years ago, when her information comes, it just comes out of nowhere. It comes out of the blue. And we're just sitting down talking one day, and she just gave me this really detailed explanation of a past life that we had shared together. She told me who we were, where we lived, how I died, and it was just there's just no way it could have been made up. It was just this flow of information. Lily as well. I do like guided meditations with your children is another really good one. Leading them in meditation and getting them to visualize things. And Lily came out of one of those one time, and she was like, "Oh, I was this in a past life, and I spoke to this spirit animal, and its name was this, and it told me this." And
they're so incredible. They're so in tune. They're so receptive.
Yeah, and
you haven't instilled any fear there, so they trust. They trust themselves to go into that energetic space and explore those dimensions of themselves. This is so beautiful. Yeah, it is. I just am so excited to meet children like that. I think they're just incredible because they're... Yeah, and your daughters are wonderful. Like, they're so gifted. But little Lily, she's so sensitive. Like, you can just see that she kind of looks at you and she can see through you, like she can, there's no secret. She can see what's really going on with you. So
you have that look though. You look at me sometimes and I'm like,
terrible.
oh my God, can see through my whole being right now. You get that look in your eye.
Yeah, and it's something I've stopped doing it now, but when I was younger, I would just sit, if my parents took us out somewhere or we were out for, having a milkshake or something, I would just tune into someone and I'd be just staring, reading where they'd come from. And my mum would be, stop that, what are you doing? Stop staring at people. Yeah, it was just this kind of curiosity I'd have and I just would read into people. But yeah, look, I feel it's really exciting if you have kids that are developing their, that are psychic and are wanting to develop their gifts. Absolutely go for it in a very safe way. Teach them about the force of love. Teach them about God. Teach them about the angelic realms. Make sure that they are on a very safe journey and encourage it. My gosh, because they're just going to grow up and be incredibly powerful adults.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably important to also sort of say, don't instantly dismiss something as imagination. I mean, look, I don't recall my parents dismissing things as imagination when I was younger, but maybe I did it to myself. But I feel like I was very tuned in as a child and I dismissed it as imagination, and that was perhaps a coping mechanism for me because I didn't understand what was happening. I kind of put it in the basket of imagination, and then as an adult I look back and I realised that it wasn't. But don't dismiss it as you have an imaginary friend or it's imagination.
No, it's
or
sometimes very real.
It's
Most
sometimes
of the time
yeah.
it is very real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, I was as a little girl talking to lots of spirits. They were, some of them were obviously now understand were lost souls, but I remember having other children, imaginary friends that I believe were children in spirits that I was able to communicate with. But in my time too, it wasn't really spoken about. So there was something inside of me that was like, just don't tell anybody. So it was hard. It was difficult not being able to express it.
Yeah.
But these days it's so much more open, and I know sometimes religion condemns this, but I think that's the old ways, and again the old ways are leaving. It's not something to be condemned, but to be acknowledged that as an inherent aspect of all ourselves. We have all these gifts and abilities, but unfortunately they have been so suppressed. But now is the time to evolve and become, the enlightened beings that we're all meant to be, adults and children, and move beyond controlled religion and into more of the exploring the multidimensionality of who we really are, and the multidimensionality of our children. Just because they're children, they're still quite old souls, many of them. And I think when children are not allowed to express that part of them, they can grow up and and obviously have a lot of issues, because then they have to work through everything that's been suppressed within them.
I was going to actually ask you that exact question, which is like, if
so
it is,
I read your mind.
You did, that's exactly what I was thinking
yeah.
about, which is about if you feel like a child feels like they're in a position where they have to suppress it or ignore it or push it to the side.
Then they become quite, feeling disempowered. They lose confidence in themselves. They don't believe in themselves. And I've had people like this as adults come to see me that were incredibly psychic, enlightened children, but their parents suppressed it and said, this is a bad thing. And so they've got to work through all that, those issues and kind of find the light inside of them again and allow that to shine and not feel bad about it. But unfortunately, we hope there's not too many of those types of parents that are suppressing these gifts. But it's it's definitely happening more and more, and I think that it's meant to be this way. I think that the Spirit God is sending enlightened children to this world for an absolute purpose and reason, to help change direction and head into a much more enlightened time than where we've been. I feel like we're coming out of a lot of darkness. I mean, there's still some rocky roads to go, but and it could take another 10 years or so before we come out of all this darkness. And I think the darkness more than ever now is showing itself. I believe that adults and children are becoming more aware of the darkness and calling it out for what it is, and looking at the darkness and going, what? I am not afraid. Even though you want to scare me and you want to bring me down, I'm looking straight at you and I'm not scared.
Yeah, absolutely. And and as the veils between the visible and invisible world sort of are thinning out, and as more of these children who are tuned in are going to be born, it is going to get to a point when it can't be denied anymore.
Yeah, that you will be seeing beyond you will see into the spirit world. Yeah, of course, because the veils are thinning, and that's all part of the journey and the evolution of this world, that the veils are thinning for a reason, so that we become aware of what we're creating. What are we feeding? Are we feeding the benevolent spirits to come into this world, or are we feeding the darkness to come into this world? Because remember, we are powering up, we're feeding one of these realms, With our actions, our deeds, our thoughts, we're feeding. So by the vows being lifted, or becoming much finer, whichever one you want to sort of tapping into, you're able to see what is it within me that I'm feeding. Am I feeding the darkness, or am I standing in a place of love and connecting to love? So you're recognizing more of your own inner world, and I think that, lies and deceptions are coming to the surface, and we're seeing and we're knowing, we're feeling. So, and this is all part of the journey. It's part of the great cleansing that needs to take place. And before this great cleansing can take place, we need to be able to see, feel, and understand what it is that we are cleansing, that we are clearing out, that we're getting rid of.
Yeah.
And replacing it with love and light and harmony and peace. No longer being, there's been so much destruction taken place on this world. There's been so much greed, and that needs to now be wiped out, and it needs to be taken with harmony, love, compassion, mercy. These are the words, these are the feelings that are going to provoke and infuse more love and light into this world, into each other's hearts.
And luckily we have this new generation of children coming through who are going to help usher in that new way of being.
The new times, absolutely. So and there's sacred parents. It's a real blessing and honor to bring these children into this world.
It is.
And yes, it's going to be hard work. I know at times it can be incredibly challenging to have a child like this, and you might feel like, oh, my child is so different, and but it's okay. You know what? It's okay. Allow them to be who they need to be. And perhaps they're here also to teach you about yourself. Children are amazing teachers. Like, truly, I've met children that are like, oh my God, blown my mind at how wise and how incredible their energy is.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, encourage your psychic child. And if you have a question, or maybe you have got a psychic child and want to tell us about it, please reach out to us. You can find our emails and contact details online pretty easily. We'd love to hear from you. And on that note, we'll end this episode and thank you for your time. And we send our love, and we will see you again on our next episode.
Thank you so much for tuning in today, and please remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and please share our message. Have a wonderful week.
Indeed.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
To gain access to private spiritual development classes, guided meditations, and live Q&As with Katerina, please visit www.patreon.com. That's patreon.com/The Australian Ghost Whisperer.